Hey everyone, welcome back to the FPBcast. Mike Szvetitz, Gerry, Ahern here with you again as we head into the end of October, final weekend of college and NFL football of October, heading into the November to remember, especially in college football. That's where, it all gets crazy and everybody kind of separates if they haven't already. The NFL, we're still trying to figure some stuff out, Jared. Like, to be honest, we'll get into this later, but I mean, the highlight for me coming out of this NFL weekend, what happened to Aaron Rodgers? What happened to Tom Brady? I mean, we'll talk about that, but we're still trying to figure it out. The haves, have-nots, undefeated Eagles were on a bye. The Bills, probably the best team in the league, they were on a bye. They've got a big game coming up this weekend. But let's start with college football. Not as big of a week as the weekend before, but there was still some separation here. There were still some top matchups, top 25 matchups, and we're starting to see. Georgia was off, but Ohio State took care of business at Iowa. Who's the best team in the country? Who's the best player? We talked about Heisman. We still got a long way to go with the Heisman, but we've got those top 4 or 5 undefeated teams. I don't think Michigan and Clemson are as good as Georgia and Ohio State and Tennessee, and is Tennessee as good as they beat Alabama, but are they as good to beat Georgia? Gerry, what stuck out to you from last week, and what are we looking forward to coming into this week in college football?
A lot stuck out. I mean, Clemson sneaking past Syracuse with Cade Klubnik coming in relief at DJU, just barely getting by in Death Valley. That really surprised me. Brian Kelly picking up a big win at LSU over previously undefeated Ole Miss.
Right.
Oregon back as a factor in the playoff hunt by ripping UCLA at Autzen. Alabama and Saban fired up again, pounding Mississippi State. And TCU continues to be worth watching, a team that we haven't really talked a lot about. Still unbeaten, rallying past Kansas State. That's a team that could sneak in there too. So, as you mentioned, a lot of separation is to come in November, but week 9 is kind of a weird week. Lots of big numbers.
Yeah. To me, Oregon, they look great. Bo Nix has settled into that offense, been familiar with Bo at his Auburn time, got a raw deal there. I think he's progressed. I don't think he was maybe as good as everybody thought he was, but now he definitely is in that system rolling there. But man, if Oregon plays Georgia now, it's a completely different story. And I think Georgia's for real. They've had some close games, but Oregon has really stepped up. UCLA, maybe a little bit overrated. Chip Kelly had them rolling, in the Pac-12 there. I think USC is a better team than UCLA. And USC, Oregon, that one, could be obviously, you've got those two best teams. USC was on a bye. But again, when you look at a game like Oregon taking care of UCLA, you look at Alabama taking care of Mississippi State. Ole Miss, undefeated, Lane Train was rolling. Your boy Brian Kelly had a little something for him down in Baton Rouge on Saturday afternoon as well. So the
Who would have thought Brian Kelly and LSU would be a factor in the SEC West?
And now, because
after the way things started, it's crazy.
It's wide open now. Everybody's got a loss. You're looking at even though Alabama lost to an East team, but it's a great problem to have if you're a college football fan because of the parity, and you're going to see a lot of stuff. And we still have 4 teams in the playoff. We're not going to the 12 team until a couple of years, but the Big 12 has to have somebody represented. Texas out, Oklahoma out, TCU, we're not talking a lot about them, undefeated. When's the last time an undefeated Big 12 team didn't even sniff the top 5? So what are we talking about here?
Well, I think it's, they are a surprise team, and Max Duggan's been tremendous at quarterback. I don't think a lot of people saw that coming either. Before that, it was Kansas, the surprise team, which their quarterback goes out with an injury and they get drilled, and they're no longer a factor. But Texas is still playing pretty good football, just sort of struggling to get over the hump. I mean, there's no shame in losing to Alabama by a point.
Right.
And Oklahoma, I just think there's a lot of rebuilding going on there for Brent Venables. And, that team just was not quite as good as advertised.
I think circling my calendar, I know we got some games this weekend, but I'm really looking forward to the first Saturday in November, Tennessee, Georgia. That's going to be, I think, right there for the not only the SEC,
Huge.
it's going to be huge. What are you looking forward for this week in week 9 of the college football season?
Well, as I mentioned, there's a lot of big numbers involved in the top 4. I mean, you mentioned Tennessee, 3rd-ranked Tennessee facing 19th ranked Kentucky, given 12.5. That's a lot of points to a pretty good Kentucky team. And you got number 1 Georgia in the cocktail party against the Gators, given 22.5.
Crazy. It's crazy.
I think they'll cover. Then you got number 4 Michigan, a team you don't have a lot of belief in, Jimmy Harbaugh, playing their other rivalry game against Michigan State. They're a 22-point favorite. 22 points in the Big Brother game. I don't know, man. I might think Sparty might cover that one. Then you got number 2 Ohio State against Penn State, 15.5. They look like they're hitting their stride a little bit. Ryan Day's got things cooking with Stroud at the helm, and in the lead, the Heisman race. I think they're okay there.
You got Ohio State's offense. We talked about their defense looked really good against Iowa, and now you've got.
But Iowa's offense is pitiful.
Yeah, well, I think you and I could go out there and score.
Well, you could anyway.
It's I think that Kentucky spread is pretty big because that's in Kentucky, if I'm not mistaken, correct, against Tennessee. Happy Valley, Ohio State coming in there. That's going to be a test for Stroud and those guys if they can, because those games in the Big Ten, you can't look ahead. And even for Michigan and Michigan State, I don't think Michigan State beats Michigan, but 22, what would you say, 22.5 is the spread? That's a lot of points.
22 even in that one.
And we're looking at, and now we're at the end of the season, or the end of October, heading into the final, 2-3 weeks of the season. These big numbers, these big spreads just concern me as far as from a betting perspective, because one guy goes down, they take it easy, they start looking ahead. You're not going to, it's just, you are what you are at this point, but I don't think there's a lot of 2-3 touchdowns. That's a lot of points, especially for some of these teams who are going on the road and getting that and having to give that many points.
Well, yeah. And I mean, you get a situation like we had at Clemson last week where the starting quarterback struggles, and gets taken out and has to get bailed out. I mean, you're one injury away from not making the spot. And that's going to be my excuse for being sub 500 in my top 25 picks last week.
There you go.
Even money for the best bets again, 2-2. But I mean, it's tough. These are big spreads. It's hard to say. I mean, Florida's a team, for example, that's kind of interesting to me. Looked like they were going to do something earlier in the year, fell back a little bit. 22.5 to Georgia. That's a big one, and
neutral site now, but yeah.
Tennessee, not that they're going to look past Kentucky by any stretch and get to that Georgia game, but 12.5 points to a team that's been ranked all season. I don't know, man.
I agree. And we're at the point now too, where you got to win. If you're any of these top five teams, you need to win. So it's not about style points. It's not about just like Clemson. If your quarterback is struggling, you got to go with somebody who can help you win. And it's not about, ego or padding the stats. It's about getting the W. Because now if you lose at this point in the season, you could miss it entirely unless you come back and win the conference. If you're going to lose early, don't lose late, and how you lose. But you're just trying to get a win. If you're Georgia, if you're Alabama, well, Alabama has to win. But if you're Georgia, Tennessee, Ohio State, with some of these wins or some of these games and some of these big spreads, it doesn't matter if they cover or not to them, obviously, but it's just about getting out of there. So these big, I would take, all the underdogs in these ones, not to win straight up, but as far as getting inside of those spots.
I'm not sure I'd go that far, but I'm still pondering these. These are interesting numbers.
Yeah, they're pretty big. Moving on to the NFL, we mentioned it at the top. Brady, Rodgers, 2 surefire first ballot Hall of Fame quarterbacks, no question about it. Is it them, or is it their offenses, or is it their season? We know Brady's off the field stuff. Who knows what's going on there? We know Rodgers has got whatever's going on, and and you got 38 in Rodgers, you got 45 in Brady at their ages. Has the game passed them by? Is it the offense and the system that's around them? No offensive line, no receivers for Rodgers, nobody to block for Brady, or is it a combination of all that?
I think it's a combination, and I don't think it's so much diminishing skill sets in either quarterback's defense. But the fact of the matter is, supporting cast matters. Offensive line matters in Tampa Bay. It's a shambles.
Yeah.
Having no receivers in Green Bay, it's a shambles, and that gives these guys, puts them in a position where they have to panic a little bit, try to press, try to do too much. And what do you see? You see the results that we're seeing: losing to the Panthers for the Bucks.
Yeah,
it's shocking. And then the Pack losing to the Commanders with Heineke at quarterback, no less. I don't think anyone in their right mind saw that one coming. But
nobody picked that. Mm-hmm.
But again, like, one guy can't win it all. We talk a lot about quarterback play, but you saw it last night with the Pats and the Bears. Mac Jones comes back, looks a little shaky. They go to Zappy. He's instant offense for a while. As the game goes on, the Bears defense turns the heat up and make mistakes. They throw picks. Next thing you know, old Jed's a millionaire.
Exactly. And Justin Fields looks like, obviously the best quarterback on the field last night, but the Bears, they're a train wreck just as well. Teams that aren't, what about the Jets? What about the Giants? Your New York teams here, they've only got 2 losses between the two of them. Jets are on a 4-game winning streak. The Giants are 6-1. Top that.
I keep hearing all these NFL analysts talk about how the Giants don't have the talent. They seem to have the talent to me.
They're winning.
I know they're thin at the receiver spot, but they're not as thin as they are in Green Bay at that position. That's for sure.
Then you got Daniel Jones running for over 100 yards on Sunday. I mean, what's going on here? And then, you look at the Jets, you look at the Giants. Obviously, the Eagles were off. They're still undefeated. They're at the top of the NFC.
How about the Seahawks leading the NFC West? Do you have that on your dance card?
Nope, didn't have that. Didn't have Geno Smith having the season that he had. Didn't have that up there. Had the Broncos better than they are. Oh my gosh. Russell Wilson, $250 million just for that. But the Bengals starting to find some offense. They look good.
Yeah, Burrow looks great
against the Falcons. Jamar Chase, that connection right there. And you've also got teams like Miami with Tua back, playing better. Tua say he's going to go down more. No, he's out there trying to put his head down and run through defenders on Sunday night.
The AFC East may be the best division in football, and that's even with the down Patriots team. Given what the Jets have done, the Bills are awesome. Yeah. And like you said, there's Miami right there on the cusp.
Yeah. Didn't have that either. Didn't have I thought it was, it was the Bills and then way down, and you're right. NFC East, AFC East, probably the top 2 divisions in each conference, definitely in football. Could we see an Eagles-Bills Super Bowl? Could we see, and the Cowboys, Dak's back. They got some offense going. Moving the ball down the field pretty well, and that combination of Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott at running back looks really good. There's some very much surprises. The Chargers, I can't figure them out. The Raiders can't figure them out. The Cardinals, there's teams that you go in and you're like, this team is automatically, never going to pick them. And then
we haven't even talked about Christian McCaffrey to the Niners either. The big news of last week,
right?
Turned out to be sort of a non-factor.
Well, in 2 days in the system or whatever. But now you got a big game between, the 49ers this week. They're going in. Let me look at my schedule here.
They got the Rams.
What's that?
They got the Rams.
Yeah, they got the Rams, and that's an AFC Championship rematch from that game. Right now,
they're giving a point. They're giving a 1.5 to the Rams, which surprises me a little bit.
Yeah, and then so if you look down the schedule, you got, and we talk about rebounding for Brady and Rodgers. The game of the week to me is Packers at Bills Sunday Night Football, but the Bills are 10.5-point favorites at home.
Yeah,
if you would have said that at the beginning of the season,
it's going to be a slaughter, man.
And it could be, but as long as Aaron Rodgers is on the field, and again, I know this season is a little bit not many receivers, but 10.5 on a Sunday night, to me, I think that's a big spread. But again, the way that the Packers versus the Bills are playing coming off the bye week, and then you got Tampa Bay and Brady hosting, the Ravens, and they're 1.5-point underdogs. The Bucs are at home. And the Ravens,
As they should be.
as they should. But Baltimore, I don't know what team's going to show up other than just.
Baltimore is, I think, in a much better state than Tampa Bay is right now.
Oh, no question. No question. So you've got two quarterbacks that could rebound, both underdogs, and that, you know, you look down the slate, it's going to be interesting to see how this all shakes out. I think the game, though, obviously with the kind of underrated well, not much anymore, but at the beginning of the season, I never thought the Giants-Seahawks game would be, to me, as big as it could be this weekend as well. You got two surprise teams. You know, the Giants got to go on the road to the Seahawks, and the Seahawks are 3-point favorites over the 6-1 Giants. So
I had Jets-Pats as being important until the Patriots laid an egg last night.
yeah, who's going to be their quarterback? I think the Jets. You know, Zach Wilson and the Jets. I'm riding with the Jets until I can't anymore. So we're going with that. But
just keep your eyes away from them.
We haven't even talked about the World Series. Gerry, real quick before we get out of here, you got the Astros and Phillies. Who you got in the World Series? Starts Friday.
Bang the trash can, baby. Let's go Astros. They're going to take care of business. Nice season for the Phillies. Amazing run to get to the Fall Classic, but I think the luck runs out against the best team in baseball.
I agree with that. But, you know, what a time to be a Phillies fan, Eagles fan, you know, big time on Broad Street, you know, and I saw them trying to grease the poles this weekend, and Philly fans still find a way to climb the poles and have some fun down there in the city of brotherly love. So, but I think you're right. I think it runs out. Great season for the Phillies, but see if the Eagles can keep it going for all those folks. Here at Front Page Bets, we're going to keep it going all week, going into, like, again, the last full week of October. Gerry, Ahern, Mike Szvetitz will have it for you. We'll be back next week, wrapping it all up at frontpagebets.com. Thanks for joining us.